And welcome back to another episode of Inside Value with me, Siam Dingy. It is wonderful, as always, to have you back. This week is a sort of culmination of all of the work that was done when we were using the value mapping framework. We've now got a bunch of value opportunities that we've mapped out. So how do we go about synthesizing these into strategies that we can apply? Once created, how do we then integrate these value strategies into our day-to-day operations in our businesses and nonprofit organizations? We'll be answering these two questions and more in today's episode. But firstly, let's start with a very quick definition. The plans that you make that answer the question, so how do we go about leveraging these value opportunities that we found, is your value strategy. The process of value strategy development, once you've mapped out the opportunities, the value opportunities that is actually pretty similar, if not outright the same as any type of strategy development. You're making action plans, you're allocating resources, be it time, be it people, tangible or intangible resources, and you're making execution plans to go about capturing the value that you found. Some vital things, though, that you must keep in mind when you are developing your value strategy. The first being, aim not to bog down your operations with your incoming strategy. Try to keep the moving parts that you've got with regards to your value strategy to a minimum to keep it quick and snappy. The second, try not to overcomplicate your value strategy. Adding in too many steps within your implementation pathways or your execution planning really does slow down the execution process as a whole and drags down the effectiveness of your value strategy. The third is ensure that you involve people that will actually be involved in the execution of the value strategy within the development of the value strategy. There's nothing more frustrating to a person who has to come in and execute than finding out that the execution itself doesn't really make sense given the work that needs to be done, especially on a day-to-day. And that is your value strategy development in a nutshell. The important thing to take note of is to make sure that you've mapped out your value opportunities appropriately or clearly, because that really, really makes the whole strategy development section a lot easier to manage and to get through. So now that you've developed yourself a beautiful value strategy, now you have to go about integrating it with the rest of your strategy ecosystem. So then how do we go about doing that to make sure that we don't have a culture clash essentially happening between our incoming value strategy and our existing business and operational strategies that are already at work within our operations? Let's begin this particular part of the conversation by setting the stage. You are likely to be sitting with either a brand new strategy or even a new strategic methodology, or even a new set of strategic tools. For example, you might be having a value strategy. You might have a new ESG strategy that you're sitting with, a new pricing strategy, new growth strategy, a new enterprise and sustainability strategy. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a new value strategy that is coming in. It can be any of these new things coming in. However, you've got this new wonderful thing, but you are unclear on how the new strategy will be playing or will cooperate with the rest of your existing tools and strategies. And on top of that, you're wanting to eliminate or mitigate any chances of possible disharmony within your strategies and your tools, both new and existing. This is a relatively easy fix, but first we need to get familiarized with the terminology that I'll be using for the rest of this episode, which is effectively the business strategy ecosystem, tools, and tactics. So first and foremost, what exactly is the business strategy ecosystem? It is the aggregation of all of the business strategies that are currently active within your operations. And that might be the overall business strategy, right down to the departmental strategies, right down to the daily strategies and workflows. These strategies exist as an interconnected network. That is to say that none of them operate in isolation, even if it looks like they are. And I've included on the screen, if you are watching on YouTube, an example or a series of examples of how these business strategies and all these operational strategies can be interconnected with each other. However, if you are listening on your preferred podcasting platform, this diagram will be included in the show notes. The next two terms that are applicable in today's episode are tools and tactics. The first, tools, are basically the frameworks, matrices, and or models that we use to clarify a given problem or craft a solution. And the second term, tactics, are the decisions and the game plans that we get from the outcomes or the results of using those tools. Now, an important thing to bear in mind is that the word tactics or the term tactics in this context can also be used to refer to the strategy that you've developed itself, but most often it's used to describe the granular day-to-day actions that come from the strategy or that are informed by the strategy. Once again, I've got a couple of examples to help connect us with these terms or make these terms make sense. Again, if you are listening to this on your favorite podcasting platform, these diagrams are in the notes, but if you are watching on YouTube, you've got them directly on screen. So basically, an example of what tools might look like might be the BCG matrix, where you are identifying the market viability of a given offering, or the Ansoff matrix, where you are exploring and grading possible growth opportunities. I like to call these particular tools single outcome tools because when you use them, you get one specific answer. Either your product or your offering is a star or a question mark or a cash cow or a dog under the BCG matrix. Or if you're using the Ansoff matrix, it is either you are going into market penetration or product development or market development or diversification. Now, with the Ansoff matrix, you can find that your offering can sort of lean into two sectors or two outcomes, but more often than not, you're getting one or the other. Now, the existence of a single outcome tool implies the existence of multi-outcome tools. And I've got examples of those as well. As a matter of fact, the Vive value mapping framework is a good example of a good multi-outcome tool. Remember, the framework helps you identify and map value creation opportunities. And this means that you are able to find value opportunities not only in just one sector of the framework, but in multiple areas of the framework. Another example of a multi-outcome tool might be the business model canvas, where you are getting multiple insights or multiple bits of information from the entire canvas as a whole, or you might choose to have insights drawn from specific sectors, particularly if you're looking to either improve on those specific sectors or to strategize as it relates to specific sectors. The significant difference between single outcome tools and multi-outcome tools, once again, is that with single outcome tools, you're getting one specific answer, whereas with multi-outcome tools, you are getting multiple different bits of information that can equally be used and applied within your scenario or your situation. Where the fun begins effectively is where the tools and the tactics come together in your use in your strategic development. Now, within the single outcome tools, a perfect example of this is when you are using, for example, the BCG matrix, which is the tool. You use this particular tool and you get an outcome, which is discovering that your offering, for example, is a cash cow. That discovery I call an outcome. Now, from the outcome, you are able to develop a tactic. In this particular example, for example, you might decide to build out an upscaled production plans, or designing better sales strategies, or leveraging your partners. In this example, you have the tool, which is the BCG matrix, you have the outcome, discovering that your offering is a cash cow, and you have the tactic, which is building out the upscaled production plans and et cetera, et cetera. Let's apply this once again to the Ansoff matrix. So the Ansoff matrix is the tool. The outcome is using the on-self matrix and discovering that product development is the best way forward for your particular offering. The tactic that then arises from that particular outcome might be performing new market research or testing the offering for market fit and receptiveness. So as you can see, there's the tool, which is the on-self matrix. There's the outcome, which is finding out that product development is the best way forward using the on-self matrix. And then there's the tactic that is developed from the outcome, which is performing the new market research and etc. Now let's use this particular way of thinking with your multi-outcome tools, which, if you remember, are the Vive value mapping framework or the business model canvas, which I provided as examples. Let's begin with the business model canvas. You've got the tool, which is the BMC. And when you apply the tool, you uncover multiple gaps and opportunities that exist within your business model. And from this outcome, you are then able to revise your business model. Perhaps you might be able to revise the affected business strategy sectors that are needing to be revamped. Once again, you've got the tool, the BMC, you've got the outcome, uncovering the gaps that are inherent to your business model. Then you've got the tactic, which is revising your business model and revising the affected sectors. Let's apply this one more time with the value mapping framework. Once again, you have the tool, which is the Vive value mapping framework. It's got all of these beautiful sectors. You're able to map across value proposition, business strategy, your niche value analysis, and your value networks and ecosystems, both internally and externally to your enterprise, right? There's your tool. The outcome is that you discover that there are so many value opportunities that are available, for example, within your value proposition and within your niche analysis, right? The tactic then becomes creating and executing a value strategy and leveraging the teams that are connected to those value opportunities to be able to capture and leverage that value that you have identified. Once again, you have the tool, which is the value mapping framework. You have the outcome, which is uncovering multiple value creation opportunities in your operations. And you now then have the tactic, which is the execution of the value strategy. Tool, outcome, tactic. So then the question becomes, we now understand our business strategy ecosystem. We now understand the concept of tools and tactics. We now understand which ones of our tools are applicable in what way. How then do we take our strategies that we have just developed and make them effectively play nice with the rest of the strategies that we have inside of our operations? And the concept behind this is strategy integration. For successful and effective strategy integration, it is absolutely vital to know where in the business strategy ecosystem your new strategy is going to be used and what other strategies that already exist within the ecosystem will be interacting with it, and when or under what circumstances that new incoming strategy is going to be used. So effectively, the strategy integration process proceeds as follows. Firstly, you must first understand your new strategy and the tools and the tactics that come along with it. For example, if you have got an incoming value strategy, understand the value strategy itself, along with the tools, which is the value mapping framework, and the tactics that come along with it. Those tactics might look like the implementation plans that you've got planned within that value strategy. The next step of the integration process is uncovering where the new strategy will be coming in. So effectively, you need to understand where in your business strategy ecosystem that new strategy needs to work. For example, if we're continuing with our value strategy example, your new coming value strategy, is it going to be very much connected with the sales processes? Is it going to be very much connected with the operations processes? Is it very heavily dependent on the finance department, etc., etc.? Figure out exactly where in your operations that incoming strategy needs to now sit. The next step is to determine the when for the new strategy. So effectively, when are we going to be using this particular strategy? Under what circumstances, for example? This when is effectively going to be telling you what other tools and tactics that new strategy will be working beside. And I've got a case study that we will be walking through together to be able to understand this particular segment quite clearly. And then lastly, once you understand the new strategy, the where and the when, you can then go about integrating that new strategy into your operations. Because now you've got the appropriate information to understand how these strategies are going to be working and meshing together. And with that, let's jump into the case study. And in this particular example, I will be using value strategy as the new incoming strategy. So in our particular scenario, we've got an enterprise, your enterprise, and it needs to improve its competitive advantage. You've gone ahead and applied the value innovation principles, and you've discovered that you can leverage value opportunities that are prevalent within niche analysis and the value networks and ecosystem segments of the value mapping framework. However, you need to make doubly sure that your incoming strategy does not clash with your existing strategies. So how do you go about doing that? You go about doing that by going through the integration process that we've just discovered. The first step, obviously, is to understand your new strategy, its tools, and its associated tactics. In this particular example, the tool we are using is the value mapping framework, right? We've used our tool and we have our outcome, which is that we discovered that the specific role that we play in our niche allows us closer proximity to our target clients. And because of that proximity, we can centralize ourselves as the go-to person within the ecosystem, which is the niche analysis and the value networks and ecosystems section of the value mapping framework. Now comes the tactics. So the tactics that are associated with this particular outcome is that we need to zero in on the roles that give us those maximal proximity, and we need to maximally leverage that. And for this particular case study, it's the offering that we've got and the expertise that we have. And secondly, we need to establish ourselves as the network facilitators and maneuver ourselves such that there's no interacting with our target clients without going through us. The next step of our strategy integration process is now identifying the where. So where exactly is our value strategy going to be working? And in this particular case study, the incoming value strategy needs to go wherever in the business strategy ecosystem where teams and individuals who are going to be executing this value strategy will be. In our particular case, we've got 2 points. The first is our role that provides proximity. So our value strategy needs to be sitting with the teams that are actually rendering the offering or the expertise. In the second point, where we are becoming network facilitators and are maneuvering ourselves to become that, the value strategy needs to now be sitting with the sales and the marketing and executive teams who will be doing that facilitation, who will be doing that maneuvering, and who will effectively be setting up that network facilitator positionality that we want to go for. The final stage is, of course, establishing the when our new strategy is going to be used. In our specific case study, we said that our value strategy is going to be improving our competitive advantage. So in our case, our when is whenever we do anything directly connected with improving the competitive advantage, but also specifically whenever we're doing any sort of considerations of our niche and the parties who exist within it, because the tactics that we've developed in the value strategy cause us to focus on that specifically. So for example, if we're going to be using the BCG matrix to analyze our product for competitiveness, then the value mapping framework must also be used to assess the value opportunities that are connected to that product towards improving competitiveness. But at the same time, whenever we do SWOT analysis to assess our competitors and our clients, we must also be using the value mapping framework to assess value opportunities that are connected to leveraging our proximity to them in the niche that we occupy. Finally, the integration process itself. Now that we understand exactly when and where our incoming value strategy must sit and operate, we must now assess for harmony between those new strategies and the existing strategies within their respective spaces. We must then check to ensure that there is no competition for resources between the new and existing strategy, be it physical resources, human resources, etc., etc. We must also ensure that there are no clashes in execution timelines for the strategies. And we must also check and see if there's harmony in the expected outcomes for each of the strategies that we have developed and that we're now trying to put into place. And finally, we must ensure that there is acceptance by those who are expected to enact the strategies. So that would be the executive teams, that would be the sales and marketing teams in our specific example, and etc. And with that, we have concluded our dive into value strategy development and how we can go about integrating these new strategies, not only just value strategy, but any other type of strategy that you are looking to implement or integrate into your existing business strategy ecosystem. And that does it for this week's episode. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Inside Value on your preferred podcasting platform. Be sure to follow Vive Consulting on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, and visit our website on vive.co.za, that is vivre.co.za, for more insights on value creation, value innovation, and value strategy. This has been Inside Value with me, Siam Dingi. See you in the next one.